Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. I am super excited to be here. As you guys know, I'm always excited to be here on a Tuesday morning. Just bear with me for a moment because it is not streaming to all of the places it's supposed to. So I'm updating everything right now. So waiting for that to happen before we welcome everybody to the show. But there we go. So welcome, everybody. I am excited to be here Tuesday. I hope the weather is beautiful by you here in Florida. It's nice and cool, but yet warm enough. We have the windows open and there's a nice breeze outside. So I'm hoping those of you that are further up north aren't dealing with the bad weather that you guys had the last time we were live. And I am sorry, I meant to kick my son out of the living room, but he fell asleep on the couch. So if you hear a random noise, it's just him snoring. And I'm going to try to wake his butt up and get him to move soon. But if you have any questions, let us know. I am going to bring my guest in. I'm looking forward to today's show. Welcome, Russell. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I am really excited. When you messaged me a while ago, I mean, I'm one of those, I book my show months in advance. So I've actually been communicating with you for a while to get you on. Finally, the day is here and I am excited. But for my guests or for my viewers that don't know who you are, do you mind taking just a few minutes to talk about who you are and what got you interested in the paranormal?
Sure. My name is Russell Reynolds. I'm the founder of Beyond Life Paranormal Research, Missouri. It started back in New York State at the age of 6 years old when I had my first paranormal experience in a house that we were renting with option to buy. And I saw my first ghost at 6 years old one morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning. It heard a noise. It woke me up in my bed, and I woke up and I looked, and here's an apparition of a Civil War soldier standing in my doorway looking at me. So I took the blankets, put it over my head, figuring like typical kid, it's not real. It'll go away. And kind of got the urge to peek back up, and it was gone. But strange things would happen in that house. You'd hear noises at night, doors opening and closing, water would turn on, toilets would flush randomly. My dad would turn the heat up before we went to bed in the winter, and he'd wake up freezing thinking us kids got up and messed with the thermostat. But I was only 6, my sister was only 4 at the time, so we couldn't reach the thermostat. And my mom's knickknacks and stuff would be moving all over the place. She'd put them on the shelf and they'd be on the kitchen counter somewhere. And she knew us kids couldn't do it. A lot of times I was in school, my sister would go to nursery school, and she'd do my laundry and put it up on my bed, folded. My dad'd go up there, my laundry scattered all over the place. And the dog would dig at a wall upstairs all the time. So my dad he's a retired carpenter now. He wanted to rip the wall open, and the attic was sealed up, so he was going to open it up, but with us renting it, we couldn't do it. And so as I got a little older, we had moved out of there because it started freaking my mom out quite a bit. So we'd wake up and the car be running for no reason. And so she's like, we got to get out of here. We ended up moving to another house. And I would go stay with my neighbor's son and hang out. And when I got a little older in high school and stuff, and we would see things in his house. We seen a little boy apparition throwing a ball against the wall. You'd see this old man appear once in a while. His grandparents died in the home, so you'd see her. I remember they had a grate in the ceiling for the upstairs where they would let heat go to the upstairs. You'd look up that grate and you see somebody staring back at you once in a while at night. And so it sparked my interest in that house that we lived in. I finally did some history research on it. And people bought it from New York City, so they started remodeling it. Well, they opened that wall up that my dad wanted to in that attic, and they found Civil War money, uniforms, bayonets, guns. And come to find out, it used to be a Civil War base and hospital. So it's seen its share of deaths. And so as I got through high school and about 18 years old, I started exploring the paranormal more with a buddy that I graduated with, and he bought me my first EMF detector for Christmas. And then I bought a little digital recorder, a little RCA one, which I still use today, and a digital camera. And we would go out to cemeteries and stuff. We'd find haunted spots, abandoned houses, and there was one abandoned house that always intrigued us. So we'd go out there and take pictures of it. And so I was like, I'm going to form Beyond Life Paranormal Research back in New York State and go people's houses and help them, because they're terrified like I was as a kid and experienced it. They don't know where to turn. You can't call a cop and say, hey, I got a ghost in my house. You need to come arrest it. So I got into doing it, and then it just boomed from there. I got talking with Robb Demarest, and he was still with Ghost Hunters International then, and he was with Florida Ghost Team. So he's like, hey, I'll make you a deal. I'll help you get started in the field if you make me some mixtapes, because I used to be a DJ too back in high school. And so I'd make him mixtapes, and so he could listen to on the road. And he got me in touch with Sean, the director of Florida Ghost Team, and she would educate me with the paranormal, what equipment to get and what to do and what I needed to do to go in people's houses and stuff like that. And then in 2012, I had moved to Missouri, and I started Beyond Life Paranormal Research Missouri. And it was slow at first, and then finally the name started getting out more and more, and then I started doing a lot more, and now it's been a booming ever since. I mean, we're booked up for the whole year this year. We probably over 130 cases deep with residentials, because we primarily do residentials. I mean, we've done some of the bigger places like Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Missouri State Penitentiary. We've done Pythian Castle. We've done Marshall Cinema, which was on an episode of Dead Files. We're the only team since Dead Files to go in there and actually investigate it. So, and we get calls all the time for residential. I mean, we're one of the few teams that'll go out and deal with something dark. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I've been doing this almost 32 years now. So.
Yeah, it's amazing how time flies when you're busy in this field.
It sure does.
Looking back, it's like, holy crap, oh yeah. But it's what I love is about this field is that almost everybody, not everybody, but almost everybody has gotten into this field because of a personal experience that they've had, whether it was negative and they wanted to find out answers, or like in your case, you wanted to help people who experienced what you experienced. So there's always that underlying reason why people get started. And I love hearing those stories about. I actually think I might write a book on why people get into the field and have everybody chip in their stories, because everybody has a different and unique story, but it's all something paranormal, related. So it's kind of interesting. But real quick before I ask my next question, welcome Clairvoyant Rose to the show, and Lee. Lee is a regular watcher of the show every Tuesday morning. Glad to have you both here today. Now, with as many cases as you have, since you had said that you book them out like a year or so, however long you have to do it because of time constraints, because you can't go to like every home that calls you that, within the next week. How do you deal with someone calls you and it's an emergency situation that they need you there now?
Well, if we determine if they got kids, if it's kids involved, it takes first priority over everything that we do, because they're innocent. I mean, they're preyed on first because they're weak with their systems, and they can see them better than we can. So we usually handle the ones with kids involved first before we'll go to somebody without kids. And I mean, we get calls saying, oh, I got a demon in my house. How do you know it's a demon? And we do a lot of background checks on our clients too. When we make that a first initial contact when they call us, I'm getting their names, their addresses, and I'm background checking to see if they got a history of violence, drugs, or you never know what you're walking into. You could walk into somebody's house and get shot. So team safety is a big thing for me when it comes to that. And a lot of times, I mean, we got called for one that was supposed to be a demonic case, and the girl was diagnosed schizophrenic. So, and you know, schizophrenic people, they hear voices in their heads because that's part of that disability. And she ended up, she was playing with tarot cards, doing readings for people, and she started hearing voices, and we went there, and place was infested with cockroaches. And she wasn't honest with us. Like my dad, he does our interviews because, like I said, he can see through people and he knows when they're lying to us. And he had a bad car accident back in the 70s, and he died and came back. So he can see spirits and stuff, so from that near death experience. And so he said to her, he says, "Where's the tarot cards?" And she didn't tell us anything about tarot cards. And her dad had found her decks, and she kept devil cards out of all 3 decks. And we didn't capture no evidence in their apartment that they lived in. It was just more with her schizophrenic disability that she was manipulating it in her head. And there was no reason for us to do a cleansing. I was like, and she wasn't taking her medication. I'm like, you need to get back on your medication. And then finally I got a phone call again. And this was probably about a week after that she was hearing voices in there again. I'm like, there's nothing in there. We did not capture an EVP. We did not capture anything on camera. I'm like, are you taking your medication? No. I was like, you need to get back on that medication. And then we hadn't heard from her since.
Yeah, no, we had a similar case like that, and it's we no evidence captured whatsoever outside of, we did get one EVP, and it was in the client's voice saying "get out," and it was an EVP, but with the video camera pointing towards her, she didn't talk.
Right.
So we thought that was kind of, you know, it was interesting, but it wasn't, because there was no other paranormal activity that we experienced. We're like, okay. And she wouldn't go get medical help because we told her, go see a doctor. You know, we're not saying you're crazy. We just want you to go get checked out. And she refused to do any of that. I mean, so how do you,
Yeah,
I mean, that was the hardest case I've ever done.
Yeah, you can't help somebody that don't want to be helped. Like before we leave a house, we do a 3-home visit.
Okay.
And before we leave them with instructions, what to follow, especially when we do a cleansing. And if they don't want to follow it, then there's nothing you can do. If they're going to revert back to their old ways, you can't turn them around. It has to be them that has to help themselves.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part is, you know, even if you determine that there's paranormal activity there and, you know, give them all the information you have, you cleanse the house, and then you give them their instructions. I mean, there's only so much you can do even once you leave, because if they're not going to continue, you know,
Yeah.
or it's a tough one. And that's another reason why it's not that we don't want to help people, because I'll consult on residential cases all day long. I just, I had my heart broken by that last case. Because the poor woman was on the phone crying, you know, I'm not crazy. I'm not 75-year-old woman crying. I'm not crazy. And I'm like, but honey, I can't do anything if you won't at least go see your doctor.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's tough.
I mean, I've had people call me where they're on meth.
Mm-hmm.
I had one call me, said he had a demon living in his lip. And I asked him, I said, do you smoke meth? Yeah, I smoke meth. I said, chances are there's no demon living in your lip.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I mean, I know everyone else has different perspectives on the D word, but
Yep.
When it comes to demonic cases, it's really hard because when someone comes to me and says, I have a demon in my home or a demon attached to me, my first response is, well, chances are you don't, because you can say that. Where if you had a demon attached to you, they're going to do everything possible to not have you say that.
Right.
So it's
And
kind of,
I mean, a lot of them don't realize that your regular spirits, they will act demonic just to scare you out, because if it was their place at one time, you're trespassing. That's like if somebody that walked into your home, a stranger that's trespassing on your property or breaking in your house, you're going to want to hurt them because you're going to want to protect what's yours. And that's what a lot of them do. You're trespassing. You're a stranger in my house. You don't belong here.
mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we actually had that on a case too. And actually, Brian, who was the leader, he's joined now, and I'll put his question up in just a minute. But he was the leader of the team at the time, and part of our team went in before us, and it was determined it was a negative spirit. Some of the members were saying it was demonic. Then when we went back in, we actually kind of determined that it was the former resident was angry that the daughter was using a Ouija board. She didn't summon anything. She just angered the spirit that had lived there before her.
Right.
But it was coming across as demonic. And it's, and that's where the experience comes into play. You got to take that time to learn, research, and, don't jump to the conclusion. I mean, I would never tell a client they have a demon in their home. I would call a priest to go to their home and break the bad news to them, if that's the case for me. But I've seen so many teams that even in 5 minutes of talking to them, oh, there's a demon in your home.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, don't do that. Because if someone is schizophrenic, then that's going to just make, their condition worse.
Yeah. Yep. It's psychological on their minds, and then it just weighs on them, and then they end up going crazy thinking there's something demonic in their house, and it's not. I mean, we did do one of our very first cases was a demonic case. We got called into a home, and we physically watched an upside down cross get scratched in a lady's neck, and her eyes rolled in the back of her head, and she kept saying, "It's mine. I don't want them to leave." And we knew it wasn't malicious, because you can actually feel if it's something darker. You get that pressure on your chest. It gets real heavy, and you feel the extreme heat. And that case, it took us about 6 months to get it back to normal.
Yep. And going back to the human spirits acting like demons, it's people don't realize that we don't understand what human spirits can do. And on that same case where some of the members originally thought it was demonic, the lead investigator that was with me, his eyes turned solid black and he lost track of time.
Yeah.
And immediately, if you saw that, if you were inexperienced and didn't know what was going on, it would be like, okay, demon stamp, we're done.
Right.
We're out of here.
And we work with demonologist Farrah Rose Dio, which is Farrah Rose Perry now out of Springfield, Missouri, and she works for the diocese office here in Missouri. And we call her, if anything goes like that, south like that, we call her, and then she takes it from there.
Yeah. No, I have a long list of people that can help me just for that reason. Because this field, you also got to know when you're in over your head.
Yep. And I mean, we won't leave a client. If we can't handle it, we still won't leave them. We're going to stay with them until they get the help they need. And I mean, in a lot of places we do, sometimes you're just one and done. You get it out and you're done. And then we'll just call the client and just check up on them. And if we need to come back out, we'll come back out. But with us being so busy, it's hard for us to just drop everything and go back out there. So I usually just call them and check on them. And that one case we did, that demonic case, we're like family to them now. They invite us over to dinner, and
Yeah, that's usually what tends to happen in this field. And it's funny because I do a lot of talk about network marketing because I also do life coaching. And I tell people in the paranormal field that you kind of need to treat your clients similar to what a network marketer does.
Yep.
You know, once the case is over, you're not done with them. You know, call them in 2 weeks to check on them, and then call them maybe in a month, and then make it 2 months. And then from there, check in on them every couple months or every 6 months. You know, just simple, hey, how's it going? You know, just checking to see how things are, you know, how you're doing. You know, you don't need to call
Right.
them, you know, a text message, you know, nowadays works just as well. And if they don't want to talk to you, they're going to tell you, hey, I'm done. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
And we've dealt with cases where people were just self-inflicting it for attention. Like we did one where a guy was getting scratched up. He had an upside down cross scratched in his forearm. He had scratches on his stomach. And come to find out, he was self-inflicting it for attention just to scare his girlfriend. Well, he when we investigated, we didn't capture anything in the house. It was more the property outside. Well, he went with us over to the barn. He went around the corner. He scratched his stomach all up and then comes back and shows us. And then we did a cleansing anyways on them. He's like, I can't do y'all's holy water because I got 2 demons attached to me. Well, our spray that we use had holy water mixed in it, and he didn't know it, and we hit him with it, and he never did react to it. And I said, well, you just got hit with holy water.
Yep. Yeah. Or the interesting test is to get a holy water bottle and just put plain water in it.
Yeah.
And then spray it on somebody and see it, you know, if they, oh, it's burning. It's like, it's just water.
And then we also wear like St. Benedict's medals that have been blessed by the Vatican. We get them from Farah. And if it's something demonic, it's going to lash out at you when it knows you got that religious on you, and it didn't do nothing. And we helped with another case where a girl was, we didn't go the first case. This was before we met this team, and they dealt with something, I guess, dark there. I don't know for a fact because we weren't there for that one. But the second one, they thought it had come back after they did a cleansing, so they called us in to help. Well, we ended up proving that the girl was faking it because she was normal when we got there. And then it was just like she flipped the switch and she was doing this blank stare, making this growl sound. And so I stood in front of her and I showed her my St. Benedict's medal. Well, she should have lashed out at me and jumped right at me to rip it off my neck. And so later on, she ended up grabbing the other team member. And so her husband and I went out there and we were able to restrain her, to stop her. And she didn't even have any superhuman strength. She should have threw him and I back like we were rag dolls. And she would just stare me down. I'm like, you can stare me down all you want. You might as well just give up the joke because we know you're faking it. Well, she started nodding off, so we did a cleansing on her, and I put a big St. Benedict's medal about like that on her shoulder. She didn't even squirm, react. And then the cat got up there. And the cat was rubbing against her. I'm like, give it up. You're faking this. And then she finally come clean and admitted she was faking it to scare her older sister.
People think this field's a joke, and those are the ones that actually end up with demonic attachments down the road.
Yeah. And see, the older sister, she was playing with the tarot cards. She's a troubled teen. And the other older sister, the younger sister thought that was playing possessed, that sister that was playing with the tarot cards was going to beat her up and bully her like the older sister does. So we made them all go with their mom and hash it all out and get it all out in the open. And now they're doing good. They all go to church and they're doing really good. The one still has a little trouble in school, but that's about it. But they're doing pretty good now.
Cool. That's always good to hear that they're doing good after a case. So real quick, going through some of the comments. Bill, welcome to the show. And then going back to when you talked about background checks, Bill says he commends you. Background is important, and I completely agree on that.
Sure is, because you never know what you're walking into.
Yep. And Irene, welcome to the show. Irene, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Irene. I know her. She's a follower of mine.
Okay, yeah, she's supposed to be on my show later this year, I think in May. But Lee says, sounds like they try to move on a spirit. What is your position if the owners say they don't want the spirits moved on? I hear that all the time at these public locations. Don't move my spirits on.
Well, if they don't want it moved on, we'll commend their wishes and not. But if it's something malicious that's going to keep attacking them, we try to persuade them that it needs to go. You do not need that in your house. If it's a good one, we get rid of the bad and try to leave the good, because majority of the time the good ones will just move on their own. A lot of times they're there to protecting the homeowners from the bad ones.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like the one case we did where the lady was partially possessed and the cross in her neck, well, the former owner of the house that died there, he comes back to look over his house, and he likes her grandkids. He'll show himself to the grandkids, like saying hi, and then he'll disappear for a while, and then he'll come back through, check on things, and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
But after we got done with everything, she started smelling roses in the home.
Yep.
So, and that's actually a good sign when you're smelling roses.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we actually had a case once where I was smelling roses, but everyone else in the home was smelling like wood burning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, why am I smelling something completely different from everyone else?
Right.
It's like, this doesn't make sense at all. But Lauren also says hello. And
hello, Lauren.
Brian, who I was talking about earlier, he says hello, and he's done a few investigations in the St. Louis area where he lived for a couple of years. He wants to know if you've checked out Lemp Mansion, the Myers House, the Gedimer House, and the Tri-County Truck Stop.
No, we have not been there. I've heard about those places, but we have not been there yet. With us being so busy with residential, we hardly have time to go to a lot of those. My phone rings day and night from people calling me for their houses, and we get calls weeks on end too but there's a few places that are on our list we're going to try to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also getting booked for Paracons, so.
Cool. They're keeping you busy.
Oh yeah. This time of year, it slows down in the winter a little bit. This year it didn't. We were going all the way through December.
Mm-hmm.
Usually around after October, it used to slow down for us, but this year it hasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that's one thing I don't get, because it's like I get booked for book signings and, appearances in September and October. It's like, but I do this year round. It's like,
yeah.
why are you only booking me for 2 months? And I get it. That's because that's when, I guess you would say, normal people are interested in the paranormal during those months.
And then when it gets warmer, it's just like booming. We're pretty much out every weekend.
Yep. Yeah.
And I also work a full-time job too, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's I've decided, actually, I'm interviewing today for a job, and I've been work at home freelance writer, but we want to save for a house. So I've decided to jump into the full-time workforce just to get that down payment. And it's like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, how can I 3 shows. I'm like, I can't balance this in a full-time job, but
right.
I'm going to have to learn from all of you that do.
And I work a full-time job. I do my own podcast Friday nights and investigate on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That definitely need to take some lessons from those of you that have been doing it, because I've been doing this for quite a few years where this is just all I do.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, anyway, going through my head, I should write my questions down, but I don't, because I like the show to go wherever the guests are, the viewers want it to go. But they've quieted down. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us. And one thing we did talk about before the show started was it your cousin that was doing genealogy? Okay. And led you to some interesting information. Do you mind sharing that information on who you are related to?
I am related to Ed Warren John Zaffis, the godfather of the paranormal, Judy Warren Spera. I'm also related to Vincent Price, the actor, Boris Karloff, the actor, several U.S. presidents. I'm also related to Lizzie Borden and the singer Prince. And my cousin Dawn's the one that found it.
Okay. Yeah.
I started doing genealogy and I found her, and then her and I started talking. We started comparing everything, and everything started adding up.
Yeah. It's interesting how genealogy can connect the dots. Because I know, like I told you, my cousin, grew up in the Chicago area. It was interesting. I had Jeff Mudgett on my show one day, and my cousin messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, did you know that she's related?" So I'm kind of like related through marriage, but to H.H. Holmes.
Oh, wow.
So it was, but it's her, so it's not like a direct bloodline for me, but it's a direct bloodline for her. And it was like, well, why didn't you tell me this before? I'm interested in this stuff.
Well, it goes way back to the 1700s with my one great grandfather, Caleb Reynolds. And that's how we ended up tracing it. And then I'm also related to Chris McKenna, which is Ed and Lorraine's grandson.
Right. Yep.
Who runs the Warren's Legacy Foundation.
Yep. So, being a paranormal investigator, how did it feel to know that you were related to Ed?
It actually felt pretty good because I've always looked up to them. I followed Ed and Lorraine through my younger years too, and their cases. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here today. What we're doing, they paved the way for us. They're the pioneers of it.
Right.
And I have great respect for Ed and Lorraine for what they do. I mean, I know people badmouth them, trash talk them that they were bad people. Well, they weren't bad people. I mean, they didn't have a mistress locked in the basement. None of that, what people say. They didn't make money off of what they did. They went to people's houses for free. Ed was an artist. He would draw paintings of somebody's house, and they'd go up and knock on the door, and then they find out the house is haunted, and that's how they would do their cases. And that's like when they got called into the Conjuring case. Well, yes, they were asked to leave, but no, Ed did not get punched in the face. They did a seance that went wrong, but Ed never got punched in the face for it. They were just asked to leave.
Right.
And a lot of people make that story up that, oh, Ed got punched in the face, Roger threw him out. No, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. And anything to make the story more interesting.
Yeah.
And looking 200 years in the future, it'll be, the demon threw Ed out of the house.
Yeah. And I mean,
the way stories change.
That's like, if you go back on my show, my podcast, Chris McKenna, their grandson, was my very first guest, and he talks about his grandfather. His grandfather liked to tell stories. He even said that. And but it was nothing negative about him or anything like that, that what people interpret, like that fake article that come out about him, and it's not true. Lorraine was a clairvoyant. It was true what she could do.
Right.
And I even had Dan Rivera, which is part of Ed and Lorraine's team, and he talked about it as well too, about it. And Annabelle is true. She is a haunted doll that is in that museum. And there was other stories that Annabelle killed somebody. She didn't kill nobody. Right. A priest, before Ed could contain the energies, before he knew how to do it, she sat in a rocking chair, is what their grandson was telling me. And a priest threw her across the room and challenged her. Well, he got in a car accident, broke his leg and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
yeah,
a lot
and
of stuff
things
about
like that. It's tough because she does have an energy about her, but could he have just randomly gotten into a car accident?
Right.
The same thing with Robert the Doll down here in Florida. It's so many people don't follow the rules, and end up with bad circumstances in life. And, is it a coincidence or is it really the doll doing it? And that's the hard part.
Well, that's like them moving her. You'll see the video of Dan moving her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were able to come up with a solution where they can move her safely to where she's not possessing. I mean, they do substantial praying and holy water on his bare hands. He's got gloves that he made that they soak in holy water so they can move her safely.
Yep. All the interesting things. And I don't know about this one. Lee has a question. I don't know if maybe you know, but has anyone tried or has Ed or has contacted Ed and Lorraine in the afterlife?
Yeah, there's been several. I mean, Steve Huff from Huff Paranormal's tried, which I am very skeptical on that. I mean, with all due respect to Steve Huff, I'm very skeptical on him trying that with his portal that he did. I mean, there's other people that have been out to their grave sites I've seen trying to contact them through spirit boxes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
and
my thing is I cemeteries and graveyards are haunted. I'm not saying that they're not, but they're not haunted by the people whose bodies are there.
No.
At least I don't feel they are. They're haunted by someone who found comfort there or by something that was summoned. But yeah, I don't understand the concept of going to a cemetery and actually trying to communicate with the person in the grave.
Right. And I mean, that's like us. We don't do cemeteries unless they got an urban legend attached to it, because we like to help law enforcement with that, because they'll get kids that go out there and want to, oh, I hear there's a ghost in this cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go out there and see it. And then they're out there vandalizing the cemeteries. And so we'll go out there to try to debunk the urban legends, like we did one here in Missouri where there's a cemetery where they hear screaming out there, where a group of kids went out there and they filmed it on YouTube. They wouldn't even get out of the car. And they say, you see the blue light, your car won't start. Well, so we went out there to debunk it, and we seen the blue light. One member and I did. We seen it floating along a stone, went to it, and it disappeared. We were able to debunk the screaming as it was a bobcat screaming out there and coyotes screaming out there. And the only interesting paranormal thing we had out there was we had a recorder, and this was broad daylight, sitting on a headstone out there. You can hear us all in the back of the cemetery talking. You can hear something walk up to the recorder and shut it off. And the cemetery is so small, we would have seen if anybody came in.
Yeah, and that's one thing that people don't rule out, is that some of the screams and the howls that you hear is actual wildlife. I mean, people get in their own little groove and they just don't think about that. But New Light Paranormal says sometimes it's believed that burial grounds have guardian entities. Exactly.
That's true. Yep, that is true.
Yep.
Because, I mean, we've got one here in St. Joe called Felix Grave. The kids, it's back in the woods, so the kids sneak through the conservation area. They go out there and they party and they have sex on tombstones. They've knocked them over. And I've been out in that cemetery, and yeah, there's something angry there because they destroyed their graves. I caught a black shadow figure out there standing on the edge of the woods, But I mean, it's because they were out there drinking. There's beer bottles everywhere. There's wrappers all over the place. I mean, they've just destroyed the place.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's sad. That's really sad that people do that. Well, with being in the field and having as many residential investigations that you have done, if, let's say, someone new is coming into the field, what advice would you give them?
If you're going to start out, don't start out like I did. I learned the hard way before I got with Robb. I was investigating solo and was a dumb kid, didn't know nothing in it until I met Robb, and then Robb got me set to the right direction. Go with an experienced team, learn from them. Don't try to go out on your own. Running a team is not as easy as you think. It took me almost 30 years to get where I am today with hard work. And I mean, it's easier to go with somebody else and work with them on a team than trying to do it on your own. And you never know, if you're not experienced enough and you're going out solo investigating, you don't know what's going to happen. You could get seriously hurt doing this. To a lot of these thrill seekers, they think this is a game. This stuff's not a game. It needs to be taken seriously and not lightly. I mean, I've got scars on me where I've gotten scratched several times. I did a case in Oklahoma where a guy was he was a Satan worshiper. And he was calling in stuff that was kind of dark, and he's got kids in the home, 2 young boys and a daughter. And I took his demonic items. I've got them locked up. And our one camera was pulsating, so I figured it was just static or something messing with the cord. And then all of a sudden, this black figure appeared in the hallway. I went in the hallway, and there it stood, and it come running directly at me, and then dropped down to about 5 feet tall, ran through my legs, and I ended up with scratches on my arm, and 3. So it's not to be taken lightly. You can get hurt, especially these ones that like to go to these abandoned haunted places. You're going in there by yourself. Nobody knows you're in there. Beam falls on your head. You're going to lay in there for weeks on end and die. Or you don't know if you're going to run into a homeless person in there. So if you're going to go investigate, always ask permission. Talk to your local law enforcement. If you're going to go out to a cemetery, you're going to go out to a vacant field or something like that. Talk to law enforcement, talk to the landowner. You don't want to go out there by yourself and nobody knows. We did a hotel in Rockport, Missouri, and a couple kids broke in there. Well, 2 got caught. The one didn't because he hid. Well, he'd been in there about 14 times in this hotel. And we were there working on it and trying to help the owner. Well, he kept walking by, and I said to the owner, I said, how much you want to bet that's one of the kids that broke in here? And he's a little urban explorer, 14 years old. He comes by and he says, which one are you or the owner? And the lady speaks up, I am. He says, well, I want to apologize. I'm one of the kids that broke in here. I've been coming in here quite a bit, and I brought a Ouija board in here. So I said to the kid, I said, kids like you that do that, you ruin it for us that actually ask permission. You're going in there vandalizing places, you're spray painting walls, you're busting windows. And I said, did your mom know you came in here? No, I told her I was going to her friend's house. So I took him with me. I said, you come with me. I took him in the back of the hotel where the roof is leaking and the ceiling's falling down. I said, you see all this? You're walking in here and you're hiding out in here. One of them beams fall on you. You're not going to know it. You're going to be laying there either hurt. I said, the owner don't get down here all the time. You're going to go missing because you told your mom you're at a friend's house. And they're going to find you dead in here. And I'm like, you need to ask permission before you start going into these abandoned places. And that's the same with these he wants to be a paranormal investigator. And I said to him, learn from a team that's experienced. Don't do it on your own.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, that's the perfect story, because so many people don't realize that. And they think that because it's abandoned, it's fair game. And it's not,
No.
Yeah. And I'm looking right here at the comments. Nightlight Paranormal says, yeah, always tell someone outside where you are, who you're with, and when to hear back from you. And then, of course, never trespass. Always get that permission.
Yep, exactly.
It's sad that they have to tag places like that. So many historic places have been like that. Yeah, we did for filming a documentary. We went to an abandoned mine, but we had permission to be there, and just all the graffiti. It was in the trash laying around. It was so sad.
Well, that's like Waverly Hills Sanatorium. When we went, there was still graffiti on the walls from when it sat abandoned for all those years. And there was a group of kids that broke in there, and they went up to the 4th floor. Well, the door shut behind them. They were trying to get out. They put an axe to the metal door trying to get out, and they ended up having to call the cops because they were stuck in there.
Yep. So did the spirits lock them in?
Yep. Because they took the axe and they damaged the windows trying to get in. Well, Waverly is one of the ones you do not want to break in and mess around with. It lives up to its name, the most haunted place in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had several personal experiences in there where I've gotten pinned to a surgery table in there doing an experiment.
Yep.
And there's one on the 1st floor that's angry. He does not like people.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I was supposed to go there, but COVID hit, and I ended up not going but the rest of my team went, the team that I was on, and it was too early in COVID for me to take the flight with any risk.
Right. Yeah, we drove out. We did the 13-hour drive.
Okay. Yeah, we were in Vegas at the time, so that was half the team was in Vegas, half was already in Missouri. So it was one of those where I wasn't about to do that drive.
It is an interesting place. I mean, what we did was Vince, our tour guide, he had a group there where they weren't getting nothing. So they were complaining. So he took them out to the 4th floor surgery room. Well, he laid on the surgery table doing the Estes method, and he had his leg get lifted up. He was telling us on tour. Well, so we decided to do an experiment. I laid on the table, had a member wheel me under the light, and I was playing like I was sick. I was coughing, and he was yelling, "We need a doctor." Well, we heard something come into the room. We had a motion light in the doorway. It kicked on. I went to sit up, and I couldn't move. It was like I was being pinned, all my legs, my arms, my chest. And we hear 2 women scream in the hallway. Well, we were with another team, so my initial thought was text that other team because they had female investigators on the team. They were on the 5th floor out on the roof. They were doing an Estes method. So it wasn't them. And this was right outside the door.
Right. Yep. It's one of those where it's like, I always hate to say that I love when things like that happen, but I love it when you can have those personal experiences that tie back to a historical event.
And then we had a figure walking back, come running in between us. It was about 5 foot tall. It was white. And I mean, it came past us quick. You could feel the cool breeze when it come past us and then just disappeared.
Yep.
And the other team was coming in behind us, and they never saw it.
Yeah. And what's funny too is half the time you experience it, but it never happens on video.
No. And then the creeper at Waverly Hills, I seen him. We were getting ready to start, and my one member, she smoked, so she went to have a cigarette before we started. So I'm milling around the atrium, and I went to the outer catwalks right by the 2 sisters room, and I see this black shadow. So I call my one member over. I'm like, "Hey, keep the camera pointed towards that." I said, "You see it?" And he saw it crawling across the floor. So I went running down towards it. As fast as I went towards it, it went down over the catwalk wall and down to the bottom floor.
Not many would go chasing after that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the daredevil of my group. I'll do most things that some won't. I'll use myself as a guinea pig in certain things.
One last question before we start closing out the show, but I know we've talked about this briefly about people not wanting spirits cleared from their home, but how do you feel about people that attempt to clear spirits from a haunted attraction?
I mean, with me, if you're there to help them, all and well, go for it. But I know a lot of the people that own those attractions, they don't want them going because that's their moneymaker.
Mm-hmm.
They get people to come there.
Yep. Yeah, I
Like,
haven't been on an investigation when it happened, but I know people who've been doing investigations and they had a spirit that they crossed over and then they got yelled at by the owner.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like, Waverly Hills has got it there. No sage, no cleansing items. Missouri State Penitentiary's got them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's another interesting place if you ever get to check out is Missouri State Penitentiary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's one of the places I want to get to. Yep.
Do the overnight. Don't do like the ghost tours.
Mm-hmm.
Do the private overnight. You get free range of the prison. You're out. It starts about 7. You go out with the tour guide. They walk you around, and then you're on your own for the night.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll have to keep that in mind. But again, thank you so much for being here today. Super excited to have you on. Definitely going to have you on in the future. Had a blast.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and before we go, can you just kind of let everybody know where they can find you if they want more information or if they need to contact you for help?
You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Life Paranormal Research Missouri, Coldspotters Missouri. You can find us on Instagram of Beyond Life Paranormal Research Missouri. You can search us on Google. If you search up Paranormal Investigators of Missouri, we're the first ones that pop up. You can find me on TikTok, BLPRMO. We've got some videos on there, and I do some lives from, if I have permission from clients' houses, they'll let us go live, but you won't see the client, you won't hear their name, you'll just see the actual investigation, what we're doing. Mm-hmm. You can, my phone number's right there on the Facebook page, even on Google to get a hold of me. You can email me at beyondlifeparanormalresearch@gmail.com. You can also get a hold of me through Supernatural Inc. They know how to get a hold of me because I do a podcast every Friday night through them. Mm-hmm. So they know how to get a hold of me as well. You can also reach out to Raven's Eye Paranormal. We work with them too on cases. They know how to get a hold of me as well too. So
perfect. And again, thank you. But for those of you watching, you could always catch this replay. I'll have it uploaded to YouTube tomorrow, and that's Heather Leigh PhD on YouTube. And you can always catch the show live or the replays on Exploring the Paranormal Show. And we also air live on Parallax One and Things Network. And we are taking next week off, but join me on March 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll have Philomena Thomas. Her and I are working on a research project involving the Hat Man. So we will be discussing what's going on, what to expect, and a whole bunch of more interesting things that we have happening there. And also for those of you who follow Ghost Education 101, Philip and I will be live tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, on Parallax TV and Ghost Education 101 with a special guest, the Haunted Librarian. She's a fan favorite. She is back for a presentation on dark tourism. So again, thank you, Russell. I will definitely be in contact to get you booked later this year. Had a great time talking to you. But unfortunately, an hour is just not enough time.
No, it's not. So I do my show an hour long, and I get guests on there. Like I've had Keith and Carl Johnson on there, and in the many years they've got combined together telling stories, it's an hour's not enough. We're doing a part 2 this Friday night on Supernatural Inc. and my Facebook page.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I used to do the show for 2 hours and it seemed like it dragged forever. And then I switched it to an hour and it's like, it's just not enough time.
Yeah. And people can catch us at the OmniCon event this weekend. In Independence, Missouri. We're going to be there walking around supporting Supernatural Inc. and Raven's Eye Paranormal and Omega Paranormal Investigations, who run the Paracon.
Okay, perfect. Have fun with that. Let me know how that goes. I've always been interested in that.
Stay tuned. We are booked in September for 2 Paracons. I'm waiting on details yet for it. One in St. Joseph, Missouri, and one in Kansas.
Okay. Perfect. Definitely let me know, and I'll make sure I share that as well. I like to share what my past guests are doing and have done. So definitely let me know.
And we're also working on a film project too. So I can't go into details yet about it. I'm still working with a producer on it. So
Mhm.
it's a TV show that's in pre-production right now. So
Mm-hmm. Cool. That will be interesting. You guys will bring a lot to the table for that show. So
yep.
okay. Well, have a great day, and I will
You
definitely be
too.
in touch. And everyone, you guys have a great week. Talk to you soon.